Okay, everybody, and welcome back. And we'll get the bias chart ready. So, looking over the reports for today, we have non-farm payroll. Last month was 227. Reuters Post still showing 190, even though we had a blowout ADP of 298. My thoughts is it'd probably be closer to the two teens. I was saying that even before the ADP. So we'll see what happens. Last month, the average hourly earnings came in at only 0.1, and Reuters poll they're looking for is 0.3. If it was to come in at 0.4, that'd really be pretty much a blowout. I think that was 0.4, like about, 2 months ago or something. Came in really strong after being disappointed. I think it was a minus 0.1 the prior month before that. We do have Canadian unemployment. They're looking for a gain of 2,500, and the unemployment rate to stay steady there. Now, the U.S. unemployment rate is actually seen as potentially dipping down to 4.7 from 4.8. And that would be it on that. So let's go on and get started here. And that was our 630 we're looking at for resistance. We did make a little run up here yesterday. We weren't able to get above the 602, so let's take a look. And obviously we're going to have wide ranges today because it's NFP and you're going to see a lot of volatility. On a strong number, obviously they're going to go and test this bias pivot on a strong number. My thoughts would be, if you look at here on the 2-hour chart, we'll also look at the 30-minute chart. Obviously, the bias pivot is the most important number, but the number that they would probably be defending right here would be actually 554, and that would be right there. And we'll take a look at it on the 30-minute chart to see where we're at. And that's coming in really basically the same place. We do have this 542 if the waves really come off this way, they come in, but we can move that just actually a hair lower, which would come in right there, 549. So, tell you what, we'll just keep it simple. We're going to say 550 for support. If we get a good strong number, would they be looking to defend this? And we're on a buy mode on the exponential moving averages here on the 30-minute. And let's take a look at far as resistance that we'll be looking at. Yesterday we had the 630. You can see the significance of the 630. But like I said, we're looking at some extreme numbers, obviously because of volatility that you'll see. With the NFP, now the 550, that's not necessarily just an extreme. It's just I think that's where they're going to come in to go and defend this market. Now, obviously, if the number were to come in a little bit weaker, we'd really punch higher. That would probably take us right into this area, which would be 682. Let's call it a bit of a stretch, 690. So we would put, and 702 is 61%. So we'd go with 690 on the top end for resistance. Once again, it could get beyond that, but we're looking at where, even on the stretch, you're going to see some buyers willing to go and come in. Outside buyers, in that case, would be sellers willing to go and come in. The market still remains bearish, although we've talked about this over the last few days, how well it's done in, not wanting to move lower. Okay, so, and we are back above the bias pivot. You can see when we got below the bias pivot, the market, continues to, the momentum goes in that direction. So let's go and take a look here on the cable, which we had 2116. We still haven't got down there, but this market is trading exceptionally tight range. And we had the 2116 from here. Oh, right there. I'm just going to get rid of that. These are anymore. We're going to put this as 2085. And actually, I'll go on and it's going to be 2070 here. Right there is going to be probably going to be like 2068. Let me go and mark this up. $20.65. To encompass what could be a volatile number if it would come in really strong, we're going to put the support here at 2065 here. Because this remains so incredibly weak. And resistance. We're going to keep the resistance here at 2244 because if we got some short cover, we could push it up a little bit higher. Yeah, Rod was saying he's looking at, how these stops will get hit. Yeah, I mean, on NFP day, you have to be careful. I mean, sometimes people want to go in and take positions right ahead, thinking how the market's going to probably play out. And they might be right overall, but in the meantime, they might just really get whipped around. So you have to really be careful. Quite often, sometimes the smarter move is to just let the market do what it wants to do in the first 5 or 10 minutes. Example would be like maybe the number comes in strong, so they put the euro under pressure. It comes down here, and I'm just using an example. So let's say you think, you know what, the euro is going to go higher, I don't care, and you buy it. But probably, let's say the number comes in strong. We end up taking a dip down here towards 580. Then they rally them up to here to about 590, and then they come back to test the 580. They get just a hair below the bias pivot, let's say the 557, and then they hold, and then they start progressively moving higher. So that's what I'm saying. In the meantime, you can really get whipped around like crazy. So quite often, sometimes when people wait, they'll wait for the third move. You got the first move down here, the second move up, then back to the third move, and then they think, okay, that's where it's going to hold, and they take their cue at that. So you just have to be a little bit careful. You're right. There's going to be it's going to be, moving around. Although at this point, most of the market is looking at the Fed's going to raise, and you think, okay, well then that's going to be bullish for the dollar. But what they're countering is a lot of this has already been priced in to start with. So let's go in and move now to the Aussie dollar. We took a look at the Aussie dollar at the beginning of the show. We'll cover the news on the Aussie and Kiwi. Let's move into that. And I'm just saving my data. That's what it's just. I was like getting in the habit of saving these workspaces in case something goes down. I mean, especially remember, like I said a couple of weeks back when my computer just outright crashed, but it didn't even make any difference. I saved the workspaces because I lost everything. But let's go and take a look at the Aussie dollars. We had 74.65, 76.09. We did make it down here to only to 74.90. So. Once again, we're going to try and factor in where are we going to go on and move on this. And I guess Rod's mentioned about the ride on the 3 drives. Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. See what he's talking about. Yeah, it's it can be pretty volatile. You just have to be a little bit careful. And I think we've talked about. I'm just going back to the same thing. This euro, and this isn't the euro. We've got the Aussie up here, but we've talked about how. Last Wednesday, the euro was holding up really well when it looked like it should break down. And then we were seeing basically a replay of the same thing again this week. And now you've seen the euro yesterday rally. So it's kind of playing into that same theme and mode. And we saw a nice rally from last week. So it's kind of playing into that is, okay, maybe everything's already priced in. So, but let's go on and get back here with the Aussie. We're going to stay with this support here. It could be a little bit volatile. It could come in, well, I'll tell you what, because it's NFP, we'll say it's going to be 74.42, right there, 74.42. You see right here, this little nub right there. Got this close and open and close, and it just sits there for a while. So we're going to go with this right here. And it's pretty good little support, which is going to be 74.41. It's a little bit of a stretch, but if we get a strong number, they could come down and test this. Let's mark this off. Because we are going to have those extremes today. And let's go and take a look here on the Aussie dollar for resistance. We had 76.09. Which would be a heck of a run. I think the resistance would be closer to right here, 75.90. If we get a weaker number, probably make a run towards this area here. So let's go and move this resistance to 75.90. Obviously, this market still remains very bearish. So let's go move into the Kiwi. And we had 68.84. We almost came down there. This market is remaining exceptionally weak. How much further could it push lower? I'm wondering if it's some very key area right here. I'm just going to go with 68. Well, let's see, right there on a little bit of an extreme push. 68.70. We're just going to move it a little bit lower. This. And resistance, we're going to go right there, 69.51. Well, let's go push just a hair bit. There, 69.60. Well, it's just a little bit above where we were already. Let's call that 69.65. That makes sense right there, 69.65. So once again, like I said, this market remains woefully bearish. We've come so far. Let's get rid of this part too. It's just, and we can take one more dip maybe. I think it's just so overdone, but it has continued to remain, very weak. And we'll take a look at the dollar CAD. This thing has been on fire. I mean, it's just relentless. We have a resistance at 35.58. Let's take a look at where we're at. Pretty good level right in here. I think it would get beat back. We're going to keep that 35.58. Still be a pretty good little run. When we look at crude oil, it's kind of holding its own at these lower levels. And for support, we had 34.35. We're going to go with 34.21. 34.21 on support. Obviously very bullish still. And when we get back, let's say we'll take a break. We'll go and cover the other pairs, try and get those done before the NFP. And thanks for joining us here on the Morning Edge with me.